Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another round of sound. This is the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. I'm Bob Pompeani. A lot to get into tonight. We're going to get into the World Cup, how far USA can advance. How about Brendan Sorsby? He's a man without an opportunity to play. We'll get into him. #1 topic tonight on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown will be the Pirates, who went 3-3 on a homestand and lost 2 of 3 to the Reds, and the problems that continue to plague them as we move forward. Here to talk about it is your panel tonight. You can see in the quad box we have Jeff Hathhorn, 93.7 The Fan Sports Director. Below him, it's Andrew Fillipponi of the Fan and the PM team, 2 to 6 every day. And then to his right or left, however you look at this, is Chris Adamski from the Tribune Review, Trib Live. And so, gentlemen, I want to start about the Pirates here. And Jeff, we're going to start with you. Just generally speaking, now here they are again at 500, 42 and 42. The next 3 weeks, or 2 weeks anyway, before the break, they have 4 very important series, starting with the Phillies, 4 games tomorrow night. And they have some pitching issues, I think, in that series as well. How important are these next 2 weeks? Will you decide at that 2 weeks that this season is either going to be a contender or a pretender status?
Yeah, I'm probably exaggerating saying this will determine the season, but given the level of competition, like the opportunity is there for them to really, if they're not on their game, this could be a really bad 2 weeks and put them in a really bad situation. So they've got to show that they can play with these teams, a couple of them on the road. You know, you get Milwaukee and Atlanta. I mean, we're talking about the best teams in the National League, and Philly's playing some really good baseball. I mean, remember when everybody was booing Philly and thought, you know, they were done, and now look at the run that they've been on. Of course, the Pirates experienced that earlier this year. So I think this is a crucial stretch for this team.
I sort of feel like that the Pirates used like their mulligan that week when they played the Braves and Dodgers about 3 or 4 weeks ago, where you're playing 2 of the best teams in baseball. They got swept by the Braves, and they lost 2 or 3 to the Dodgers. There's not really harm or shame in losing 2 out of 3 to the Dodgers. In getting swept, they didn't get totally outplayed, and that can happen over the course of a season, especially against 2 really good teams. But now that you did that once, you can't do it again, right? You can't afford to get swept again by the Braves. You can't afford to get swept or even lose 3 out of 4 to Philadelphia. You had your bad month. Every team can even be afforded a bad month and still make the playoffs. June was their bad month. Okay, they did it. If they put it behind them and get back to playing like they did in April and May during July, they'll be okay. But you've spent all your capital that you had that you could have to be able to still be a playoff team this year.
Bob, it's to me, in talking to a Pirate source, this is going to determine what happens with Brandon Laauo. So it's absolutely huge. If you're telling me that Brandon Laauo, in the last year of his contract, if this team, say, wins only 5 or 6 games before the All-Star break, he's now on the block because he doesn't have a contract beyond this year. And and Chris Adamski, I should say, has a better chance of growing back all his hair than Brandon Laauo does of signing with the Pirates.
Collateral damage. Wow.
Either way, it's true.
Right. Or Laauo growing back all his hair. I mean, it's not happening. So this is it for him. There's already scuttlebutt and a rumor out there that the Yankees want him if he becomes available. So to me, he's been other than Reynolds, your best hitter. He might be your first 40 home run hitter in a season since Willie Stargell. If this stretch determines if they keep him or trade him off, then it is the most important stretch of the season, and they better find a way to win games despite bad bullpen, mediocre starting pitching, and really no O'Neal Cruz, as Ben Cherington confirmed today.
Well, here's the thing. With Brandon Laauo, if they are in contending status, then they can't afford to move him. However, they also know that he's going to leave at some point. So that's an interesting thing to follow, and it's one of the things we'll be focusing on. The other thing is what has happened a lot already 3 times on this homestand, blown leads. You know, so, Chris, when you look at this bullpen, they have no answers at this point. Santana, even today he came in, gave up a couple of walks, even though he wasn't scored upon. It was a low-leverage situation. They're blowing saves left than right. So what do they have to do, and how soon does Ben Cherington have to react? Because I think he should have reacted already.
One thing to do is face the Reds every week, every game, because that's the only team that has a worse bullpen than them. I think that was awful. They couldn't throw strikes. When they did, they were hit about 8 miles into the river. By the way, Andrew, I think, how do you know I don't have a full head of hair of luscious locks underneath this hat? That's why I wear the hat. It's mystery, right? That there's
Sure.
really no.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Oh, but the bullpen, I was willing to give it a pass the first through April and May. There are some track records there. I mean, last year Dennis Santana was so good for them. To other points, some of the other receivers were really good for them. Sisk was good for them those first couple of months of the season. But now it's the point where it's full on. We're halfway through the season. They are who they are. You can't expect internally for these guys just to improve. You're going to have to go out and be aggressive in some way. It's just such a shame because this offense is bordering on sort of historic for how good it is. They're a top 5 offense. Runs, OPS, they're on paces for, in franchise history, like home run type paces they haven't had in a while. And to waste that in a season where all the way around their roster should be good enough to make the playoffs because they've blown so many leads is just kind of inexcusable and very, frankly, just very Pirates.
It would be helpful, though, Jeff, if the starters went a little longer into games.
Yes.
Again, today, Keller just 6. It's been routine, 5 innings. It seems no more, and that puts stress on the bullpen. That's not making an excuse for the bullpen because they've been bad, but one helps the other.
Well, and guys, as we talked about during the Steelers season, the defense should be better than the offense. They have all that money there. The expectations are higher. Same with the pitching staff. Like, they can't go 4 or 5, and when you get a 6-inning start like you get today from Mitch Keller, like that's some kind of hero's outing because he went 6 innings. I mean, it's not to excuse the performances in the bullpen. They need a couple of new arms in there, not just recycle somebody from the minors or hope that Wilbur Dotel will be the guy. And Charrington said today that, it's going to be a couple of weeks until we see trades.
Yeah, he continues to try to undersell and then maybe overdeliver. Bob, I mean, the mistake of all mistakes in the last year was trading David Bednar to the Yankees and only getting Rafael Flores and a couple of guys who will never play Major League Baseball back in the deal, have a better chance of being Washington Wild things than Pittsburgh Pirates. And that money, Bednar's making over $9 million. Well, guess what Marcell Ozuna's making? $10.5. So you could have afforded David Bednar. That could have been your closer. You don't sign Marcell Ozuna. Well, now you don't have this clogging player at DH, and it frees up Reynolds to play there, O'Hearn to play there, Horwitz to play there, Esmerlin Valdez to potentially play there. That, to me, the Bednar trade was made worse by the Ozuna signing, and that has created this domino effect or butterfly effect that has you with one of the worst bullpens in all of baseball, Bob.
When you mentioned
Soto should not be closing games. That should be Bednar's job, and he should be a setup man.
Yeah, well, Mojinski should be now given a chance because I can't keep watching what I'm watching there, and they misused him. His role is not a good role for him. Again, today, I know he was in there for 2 1/3 innings, but with the rain, he wasn't going to come out. He would have come out for the 9th, and then you don't see him for 5 more days. We'll talk more about that, and also Paul Skenes, who has gone 45 days without winning a game, and the Pirates have lost 8 starts in a row with Paul Skenes. That just doesn't seem possible, but it's happened. We'll talk about what they need to do to change that or what he has to do. We'll also get into some Penguins news as they had their draft over the weekend. 6 new Penguins were drafted. We'll get into that and more as we continue right here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. It's a perplexing problem. What's happened to Paul Skenes? He's had some good outings in the last 8, but they haven't won any of them. So, Andrew, when you look at him, you see his velocity is down from what we used to think of him. But now he's trying all different kinds of pitches, and it doesn't seem like he's going deep into games because his pitch efficiency is not very good. How does this change, and why is it happening?
Well, how does it change? That's a great question. Paul Skenes is the greatest pitcher, talent-wise, I think, in baseball, so it's incumbent on him to figure it out, not my job to have all the answers. He should have them. And his secondary pitches, his changeup, his sweeper, his splinker, have gotten hit a lot harder this year than they did the last couple of years. He shockingly changed his arm angle. And we still don't really have sufficient information or an understanding as to why, if it wasn't broke, why did he feel like he needed to fix it this offseason? I will say, Skenes, people are trying to create this divisive argument, fans are against Paul Skenes. No, we expect him to pitch like one of the 5 best pitchers in baseball, and he has not done that. And it is compounded by his insistence on Henry Davis, which drives me absolutely crazy, even though we finally hit a home run the other day. And the other one is what he said about the salary cap. Okay, you want to make enemies in Pittsburgh fast. Talk about how you never want a level playing field and you'll basically lay down on the railroad tracks to prevent it from happening. And that's exactly what he did a couple of weeks ago. So to me, he went from being like my favorite athlete in Pittsburgh to a guy that I have some questions about now, Bob.
Well, let me say this about Skenes. He's still a great pitcher, but that doesn't mean you can't criticize him. Like, you hold T.J. Watt to a higher level. So when T.J. Watt has 9 or 10 sacks, that's still a really good year for some, but you expect more out of him. I say the same thing about Skenes. He needs to be better.
Jeff, think about it this way. It's like your daughter who's brilliant. You were used to her bringing home A pluses. Now they're B pluses. That's going to be a problem for Jeff Hathhorn, is it not?
It is going to be a problem, and she needs to make sure she gets those A's. But same with Skenes. I mean, listen, it's okay to say you need to pitch at this level because we've seen it, and not just seen it for a week or a month. We've seen it his entire career to this point. A 3 ERA is high for him. He hasn't been finishing off batters. That's been the big thing for him. He hasn't had that, whether he's overthinking it, and I think at times maybe he is. Maybe he's using too many pitches. Go back and simplify it a little bit more. But that's been the big problem. Look at how many 2-strike hits and how many long counts he has because he hasn't been able to put away guys with the same efficiency as he did previously.
To me, it's a lot like what I talked about with the bullpen, where for a while there it was a small sample size. He really has been let down by his defense a lot this year, and that's not an excuse, but his ERA wouldn't be where it is if he got the defense he got last year. I think up until maybe 4 or 5 starts ago, I was still saying that. Everybody talks about the opening game of the season, of course, when O'Neal Cruz butchered everything in center field, but there's been plays at third base. It feels like every time he's out there, there's a play. It's not an error, so his ERA still is affected. But that being said, Jeff's right. It is a different pitcher. And what Andrew said earlier, we gave him a lot of credit, and that's part of his personality going into last season was he was so good as a rookie, but he did all these things to improve and to change things. And he never stopped improving, I guess, is sort of a way to put it. And maybe he overthought himself. I mean, my favorite movie all time is Major League, and I can't help but think this is Ricky Vaughn, where it's just too many things, just rear back, throw the fastball. You're working on too many pitches. His menu's too long. And it is, you're right. You have to acknowledge he's not the same pitcher he was last year. Again, that doesn't mean he's not an all-star. Doesn't mean he's still in the top 5 in WHIP. He's still up there in the top 10, certainly in ERA. And he's still one of the better pitchers. I'd still take him in a one-game playoff, whatever it might be, or a winner-take-all game. But he's not the pitcher he was last year. That's a fact.
I'd put Ashcraft out there, Chris. I'd put Braxton Ashcraft. 100%. Yes.
Man.
He's been better and he goes deeper into games. Jeff and Bob, will you back me up on that? Am I insane? He's been better.
Listen, first of all, I think Paul Skenes, I want to see him when the lights are brightest. If I had my choice.
So you agree with me? Thank you, Bob.
No.
He's had a better season. Doesn't mean he's a better pitcher.
I love Braxton Ashcraft right now. He is a better pitcher than Skenes right now. But I still take Skenes.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ashcraft has been a better pitcher this year, but if I have one game to win, I'm still throwing Skenes out there.
All right, listen, I got 1 minute left. I need this answer because, Pony, you brought this up, so I'll just follow suit. As we sit here right now, tell me your position on Major League Baseball and the Players Association. Do you expect a lockout, and if so, who blinks first? I mean, make it quick. Pony, you first.
Yeah, I mean, I do expect one, and I think the players will because it's a simple economics game. One group is billionaires and the other group is millionaires, and usually the people with more money can hold out longer. There you go.
I think there will be a lockout. I think the owners will blink first because the very rich owners are going to say, why are we going through all this problem? We made a lot of money. We don't need all of it. Why are we carrying the mail for some of these other teams? I think that's what it'll come down to, and the owners will blink first.
I was actually really impressed. The owner's first proposal was a lot better than I think a lot of people thought it would be. The floor of $170-some million was a lot better. So the fact that the players reacted the way they did to it makes me wonder if there is. And who's going to blink first is the owners, because every single time in baseball, it's always the owners who blink first, and we're always in the same system, and we're stuck where we are.
We're due for a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the NHL draft. The Penguins have a lot of money to spend. How are they going to spend it if they don't have assets to make trades? We'll get into that as we continue right here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. All right, Penguins had the draft in Buffalo. It came away with 6 new players. Of course, the Ruck twins. And then 4 others. Jeff, I want to ask you about no trades for them. I know they brought in LaPierre from Washington, but I'm talking about significant trades. They have a lot of money to spend in this offseason. They seem not to be interested in free agency. So how do they spend it? Because they have to spend it.
And I thought Friday there were sobering comments from Kyle Dubas saying they didn't have the assets, they didn't have the capital to be able to make the type of trades that other teams are making, because it was Dubas that brought up, hey, we need a player in their late 20s, early 30s that are really in the prime of their career. That's what we're missing for this team. That's what we want to go get. And now after the draft, he's like, you know what? We can't get it. That was really disappointing, as he talked about a brick-by-brick mentality, which tells you, like, this isn't something where they're going to go find a guy and all of a sudden they're going to be an elite team in the East.
We saw last year the Capitals missed the playoffs this past season after taking that jump, and the big storyline, the narrative, even in Pittsburgh, was, oh, how did the Capitals do this and the Penguins haven't? And we're kind of seeing maybe that the Capitals a little bit of fool's gold, and I think the same thing kind of maybe happened with the Penguins here when you had guys like Anthony Mantha that you're hanging, that are a big reason why you won as many games you did during the regular season, that aren't part of your future. The Penguins arrived, if you want to call it arrived, making the playoffs a year early. I think if you almost gave Kyle Dubas like truth serum, he didn't want them to make the playoffs last year. And I get it, in some ways it's good. It kept Sidney Crosby engaged, keeps all the veterans engaged, keeps the fans engaged, new ownership and all that. It's not like they wouldn't turn it down, but at the same time, I think overall this is still the project here. The vision wasn't for 2026 or even 2027. I'm probably going at least a couple years out before they're making those big additions like that.
Well, he's got the assets, Bob. He just doesn't want to trade them. I mean, to me, you can't tell me that if we're talking about a Dylan Larkin or Jason Robertson or one of these guys, that if you brought up Ben Kindle, those teams would automatically say no. He doesn't want to trade Kindle. That became obvious in the comments that Jeff's referring to. I think you could put Chinnikov in the same conversation. He's got two young guys that most teams would take back for an established star, but they're already on the NHL roster. We know the prospects aren't very good. He admitted it. He said that's why they signed Gino back, because there was nobody that was knocking down the door. The thing they got to do, if they're really going to change their outlook for next year, is they got to make the offer sheet to Robertson. And they got to be willing to part with the 2 first-round picks and pay him the money and convince him and get Sidney Crosby on the phone and have him get on the phone with Jason Robertson and say, hey, I'm actually going to recruit you here. I'm one of the greatest hockey players of all time. Come take the torch from me. And we'll see what that's what I would do. Have Mario call. I mean, have those two guys make a phone call. Maybe Jason Robertson says yes to the Penguins, where he said no to Seattle and St. Louis, allegedly.
Yeah, but these prices, I mean, he turned down $12 million a year. He turned down $15 million a year. He wants Kaprizov kind of money. And that's, they
give him Kaprizov money. He's a 100-point scorer.
I mean, they have the money. That's the thing. They have the money to spend.
Right.
Like, you're going to have to spend it somewhere, and instead on just, $2 million here, $3 million here, or overpaying for somebody else.
Bob, you love spending money. Now you're going to say, let's be thrifty here? We got to spend the money.
The reason I'm saying it is because he's already turned it all down. I don't know what they have expectation-wise for one player, but he would be someone I would do it on, absolutely. And I would be willing to part with some things here that I may, say I'm not really going to part with him. When I begin a discussion, by the end of it, I would give it up because that kid is 26 years old. He's already a 40-goal scorer and a 100-point guy. So I like him. I wish they would do something like that. He could be here for 10 years.
Does anybody know he wants to come to – he obviously wants to go certain places or doesn't want to go certain places, right? If he turns down the money he's being offered, it's at least – I know money's a big part of it, obviously, of course, but does he want to come to Pittsburgh? Is playing with Sidney Crosby appealing to him? Does he want to go to a big market? I don't know what he wants. Maybe he would want to come to Pittsburgh. If that's the case, it is a unicorn that somebody that age, that's that productive, that's been that durable, essentially, is on the market of some sort, right? And I know you get to overpay in terms of maybe what you paid anybody else, but at the same time, if he wants to come here and he's interested in coming here, you'd be dumb not to explore it and figure out how to do it, right?
Yeah, I think they have to explore everything at this point. And I realize there are longer-term goals here with some of these guys, and I don't see many internal options, although you might be surprised. A guy like Avery Hayes, somebody else in there, they want Koivunen to be good.
And Bob, it's got to be better than Darnell Nurse. I mean, is that going to be the Christmas present under Penguins trees? It can't be Darnell Nurse. Come on now.
I could see not trading Kindle or Murashov. Anybody else, though, can be. If you hold those two back, you make any trade, nobody can really.
Well, listen, if you're a team like Dallas, if you lose Robertson, all of a sudden you may want Brian Rust, who's a 30-goal scorer they still want to win in Dallas. They just have an issue with the salary cap. They have to figure it out, and that's why he's on the market, or that's why he wants to leave, because they're not satisfying that down there. We got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Brendan Sorsby. CFL says no to him. What does he do? Next. With America turning 250 years, how about number one Cochran is pulling out all the stops during their red, white, and new event. Get up to $1,000 in extra savings on tagged vehicles. Plus, find leases from $129 a month, pre-owned payments starting at $99 a month, and financing as low as 0% from 8 different brands. Don't miss the red, white, and new event now at all number one Cochran locations and Cochran.com. We thought there was going to be a supplemental draft. No supplemental. CFL says no thank you. We don't want Brendan Sorsby. Too much gambling. So, Chris, what happens to him? Where does he go this year, and how does he end up somewhere?
I guess the CFL came out and said he can't even go there. I thought that might have been an option. At this point, man, he made his bed. Get prepared for the draft. You know, you be a second or third. In some ways, it'll be better off for him because he'll go to a team that actually planned for him, that planned to have a young quarterback. He'll have the whole spring to work with that team. He won't be the center of attention of all the news storm that he would have been if he would have been drafted here this week or next week.
Yeah, it's accountability, and he's got to face the consequences of what he did. And I'm glad that all these leagues are saying no. But not everybody gets a get out of jail free card. This dude knew what he was doing. He bet on games that he was a part of, on teams he was a part of. He should be sitting out.
All right, Pony, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got to go to the scouting combine next year, make a great impression when he meets with teams, and if he does that, I think there's a chance he's still a very high draft pick, Bob.
Yeah, he's going to have to wait, but some people will find out. That may mean he's not going to be a number one pick. He may be a second, but he'll get a chance eventually, just not now. When we come back, quick picks on World Cup. How far does the USA go? That's next. USA and Bosnia, Wednesday, first round of the knockout round. How far can they go, Jeff?
They got 2 more wins in them.
Okay.
I feel like
I have a terrible feeling they're going to lose to Bosnia. They're going to be one and done here, Bob. It's over.
In honor of Drew Aller being here, it'd be a Penn State-like run in 2024 where they beat all these bad teams. They're good and they're very good and they're losing the semifinals.
Well, we'll find out. They begin on Wednesday is the knockout round. It's USA and Bosnia-Herzegovina. That's going to do it for us. Thanks for joining us. See you next Sunday night.